Okay. The second topic was topic 2. Does this hobby have sustainability? The points that they were bringing up was, with the rising costs, shipping, we've talked about a lot here on the channel, just the never ending price increases. They were asking, like, do we think that certain statue companies are going to be around in 10 years? Do we think we're still going to be collecting in 10 years? Do we think that the statue companies are still going to be able to make a profit when the ESs are 200? What do you guys think? Do you feel like at this point, we've talked a lot about some of these big issues. Do you feel like this hobby is going to be around in 10 years?
Oof.
I know it's a heavy topic.
Yeah, it'll be around in 10 years. It will have evolved, but it will be here.
Yeah.
What do you think it'll involve too?
Some companies will go, new companies will spring up. Yes, there might be, there very likely will be lower edition sizes. But I can't imagine that it will go away completely. That doesn't make any sense to me. I'll give you an example. I'm very involved in 2 communities. One is statues and one is vintage comics. People have been calling for the death of the vintage comic market for at least 30 years.
It's true.
And if you know what to buy, it consistently goes up, 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 up. It just doesn't go down. And it's not going anywhere. The statue community, as far as interaction and is light years more active than vintage comics. I think I've said it before. If you look up vintage comics on YouTube, you're not getting anywhere near the content you're getting for statues. Yes, you're getting the what's hot this week kind of stuff. But when you're talking about really drilling down on the history of comics, there isn't that much. And trust me, I've tried. I will do a YouTube video on a statue related topic and get 3,000 views, and do one on vintage comics and I'll get 300 views.
Yep.
There's just not the viewership out there. So if vintage comics can survive and continue to go up in value, I can't imagine that the statue community would allow this hobby to go away.
Do you think that's an age thing? Do you think that, it's like
thing?
An age thing? Like there are less younger people maybe reading or collecting comics?
I don't know if there are less younger people, maybe, yes. But I think there's an awful lot of people reading digital comics that would never have gone and bought one off a spinner rack.
Yeah. Well, they said that once, like when digital first came out, they were like, well, are comics still going to be around? And they're still around. So.
Right.
Yeah. Digital's not going to kill it.
Yeah.
It could help it.
Yep.
Quite a bit.
Julie, were you much of a comic reader growing up?
Here and there. I feel like I've gotten more into it actually recently with the Poison Ivy series. And here and there. I was always a reader. Not so much comics, but every now and then I would find something I liked, But there were some classic stories that I love, like The Killing Joke. It's one of my favorites.
Yep.
So just some classic like Joker stories, but more recently, Three Jokers, the Poison Ivy series. I talked to Paula a little bit about there was a Vampirella Mind Warp series. So just whatever strikes. And I really think it had a lot to do with COVID, really, because it made us think about the world in a different way. And because we were all spending so much time at home, we were ordering a lot of things online. I found a lot of things. And then, you're online, you're looking for things to do, things to read. And, the world shuts down and you need to figure out, how do I fill that time?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Whereas before there wasn't too much free time.
Yep.
So.
Well, I'm glad you found it. And I'm also glad you hooked up with Paula. That's really great that you guys can connect that way. That's awesome. She's great.
Oh, she is.
She
is.
Yeah. What do you think about this topic, Dan? Like, what do you think about 10 years? I mean, do you agree with what Jeff said about, companies will come and go? What do you think?
Yeah, I think they'll morph. I agree with Jeff. They're just going to, you know, they'll morph. The healthy ones will be able to come up with, you know, they'll innovate, right?
Mhm.
They'll come up with ways to lower cost, maintain their margins, and, you know, hit their targets just by changing the statues. You know, they'll change scales, they'll change materials. You know, I'm kind of shocked we're not seeing more quarter scale PVC statues, right? Lighter weight, reasonable scale, lighter shipping costs. You know, I mean, Blitzway does phenomenal stuff with PVC portraits, and we all love it. It's like, okay, why couldn't they continue that for the whole statue and make it a whole lot lighter?
Don't you think that'd have to be like a complete culture change, though? Because I mean, you remember when Sideshow did that with the Swamp Thing?
So I'm thinking, yeah, the few times it has been done, it didn't go over too well in the community.
Yeah, but I think it would. But it's all about communication, right? It's about engaging with the community and explaining why and what are the upside benefits of PVC? Less breakage, lower shipping costs, more detail. You know, I'm sure there's a whole laundry list of benefits that come with PVC. Then who cares at the end of the day if it's substantive? It's not like it's made of paper or something. You know, it's not plastic. It's like it's a nice piece. Just because it's not a synthetic rock doesn't make it less valuable.
Well, I forget who we had on, but I feel like somebody said that it was actually more money to produce it in plastic than over polystone.
Right, but
any of you remember that?
More about viability, right? So if the question is, can you keep consumers buying? They have to figure out a way to lower shipping costs, make it easier for the consumer to buy, right? Because, you know, like it looks like Prime One is making a shift toward quarter scale. That's absolutely a response to people buying less.
100%.
There's no other reason to do that, you know, to retool and rethink all that. No, it's because their orders went way down.
And speaking of Prime One, like, so, I mean, obviously Detective Comics 1000 right over here. I mean, again, Dan, you have this piece, phenomenal piece. The fact that the cape is PVC, does that diminish the statue in any way for you? Like for me, it doesn't.
Whatsoever.
I say it all the time. Like, I'm so happy that it is because it's not going to break. That torso is not near as heavy as the hush back cave that I have behind me, which is why it leans.
Yep.
I mean, I could care less. It looks fantastic. It's still sculpted. It's still painted.
But it works better on some pieces than others.
Yeah, I'm sure that's the case.
Like with the Detective, that cape is so like flowy and so much like going on with it. It's, you know, if it was just like a solid cape and plastic, I don't think it would, you know, work so well in that matter. Because then you're gonna see like it looks like plastic.
Yeah. What'd you say, Jeff?
It was still $500.
I know. I'm just saying, it's still $500 to ship to me.
And people still won't buy it when it's like 25% off. They're like, no, I still will not pay that $500 shipping.
Yeah.
It's so disheartening. You get a 15% discount and then you put it in your cart and see $500 shipping. I mean, how many people have done that with the one that's on seconds right now and has been there for a week with no takers?
See the post all the time.
Don't you think this is the most telling it's ever been?
Yeah.
That people continually say, even with that, I am not going to spend that on shipping. Yeah. And people don't.
Yeah.
Because before
it's come to a point where it's too much and people realize that now it's insane.
Right. And we're to that point where before people would be like, I'm not going to do it, but they would do it anyway.
Yeah.
You know, they would all be lip service and they would complain about it, but then they would still do it. Yep. But now we're really seeing people not do it. And, you know, it sit there for a week on seconds, which again was unheard of.
Yeah.
Because usually those go really fast.
Yep.
Another one that keeps popping up is that Darth Vader Mythos.
Yeah.
Yep.
10,000 edition size. So it makes you wonder, like, are they really like having the boxes messed up or are they just trying to get rid of them at this point?
I wonder about Superman, the Chris Reeve Superman too. It's always on there.
I mean, I would absolutely guarantee that they're back in their warehouse dropping the box and make it dented because they're needing to get rid of them.
Yeah.
And it's smart.
Which I still think, if that's the case, if they're offering money back because the box is already damaged, then the same should go if it arrives to my house and it gets damaged, the box or whatever. I should get a discount, I think.
Well, don't they? I mean, they will offer that, won't they?
Yeah, I know. I guess if you complain about it, I wouldn't go through that trouble. But
what about you, Eric? What do you think of the next 10 years? Do you think it'll be the same or different?
It'll be interesting to see if the technology changes in any way, as far as like, you know, because we started with, you know, traditional sculpting, Then it went to 3D sculpting. Now, like the new thing seems to be like the silicone, like, the companies are using the silicone. So I am curious to see where it goes in 10 years from now, if anything, like if any major changes happen. But yeah, I think statue companies will still be around. I don't know. It's still, like I said, it'll be interesting to see what they do, if they do make any changes. Like museum poses used to be really popular back in the day, and then statues got more dynamic. So curious to see where it goes next.
Yep.
Do you think it's all going to come down to just simply price? Like, I mean, the prices just have to come down?
You think maybe they might take like a step backwards and like start making more simpler pieces? I mean, I guess for the most part, Sideshow still makes, more simpler style statues, nothing too crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like I said, like Prime 1, it looks like Prime 1's now switching to quarter scale for that reason. So for these other companies that are putting out these high, dollar items like, the silicone stuff, it'll be interesting to see how long they stay around for. Because, those are a lot of money, those pieces.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you, Julia, how long have you been collecting statues, statues proper? I mean, not necessarily the hot toys, but just statues.
Yeah, it's really been, I mean, I'm definitely the newbie. I want to say probably maybe 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So being new, does it feel really overwhelming? I mean, you kind of came into these prices a little bit. I mean, you've obviously seen them go up even in that 2 year period. Does you just order in your first third scale, do you look at that price and go like, holy moly, like, what am I doing? Like, does that freak you out as a new collector, like seeing those kind of prices and knowing they're only going to continue to go up?
It does. And, in that way, I'm grateful that I'm very selective, and I have, who's to say that'll probably change at some point, but I do have a focus and a vision, and I say, okay, I'm just going to stick with what I love, and yeah, the prices, they're scary. I mean, I emailed you, I was talking to Dan about it.
Yep.
It was tough. It was tough to swallow that, but at the same time, it's, I was looking at it and I'm like, they're probably never gonna do this again. So it's like you always say, Chris, I mean, we don't want to pay, but yet we end up paying because we look at it and we say, well, that's never going to happen again. Once that's gone, it's gone. It will just increase on the secondary market. So
well, I think what you said is really important for a lot of collectors, and I feel like a lot of us have trouble with it, is that focus, is trying to narrow it down, because in the old days, and then we're talking 10 years ago, like, it was a lot easier to buy everything. I mean, because everything was $300.
Yeah. Both buy and sell.
Correct.
So like if you wanted just to try something out and pick it up and then decide you don't like it and sell it, now you can't really do that anymore either. It's hard to sell things these days.
So, back then it was much easier. Whereas now it's like I think it's like you said, it's just so important to pick a focus and really kind of narrow it down to those pieces that you really want. Obviously we talk about not spending beyond your means, which again is hard for some people, because a lot of people have the I wants. I want this, and I'm going to get it and try to make it happen. Obviously space limits a lot of us as well. I know like what Jeff's going through right now with kind of his reorganization with all his movie pieces coming in, and his giant green thing. And I cannot wait for that, by the way.
I can't either.
Yeah, I'm so excited. I'm so excited for you. But
I can't wait.
I know it's so awesome. But it really, I'm just like, I'm thankful every day that I picked a focus, although I did pick a focus with a lot of characters. So it's like I should have just picked like Darth Vader or something. Like that's all I collect. I do envy those people, because that's, if you're only collecting poison ivy, that's great, because there's not a ton, and it helps you kind of, rein you in a little bit, which is great.
Yeah.
But
they do make a lot of them.
So you got the skin variant, Julia?
The for the Prime, did I order that one?
Yeah, did you go to the skin variant?
I did. Yes.
Yeah, I personally like that one a lot more than the original.
Yeah, me too.
I'm kind of curious if it's going to be released in quarter scale sometime down the line.
I know. I know, me too. And that's the thing. And I had to laugh because then they put out the new Sideshow one. Sideshow makes the announcement. So it's just funny how they, they waited. And I saw people in the group say, well, do I cancel the Prime one and get the Sideshow now? So,
Right.
I mean, they're for-profit companies, right? Like we always say.
I think, we've talked about this before. I contend that it's I think they know this collecting community. And Chris, you were talking about it when you were saying, when we were talking about, do we tell people about the hobby? There's only so many of us, right? The collecting community is only so big, and it's certainly a lot smaller than the comic book collecting community, right? So there's only so many of us. These things are really expensive. So if you think, okay, out of that group of us, how many are inclined to buy a poison ivy statue? And the group goes smaller. And then it's like, okay, how many poison ivy dollars are there to go around?
Right.
So this is absolutely a beat them to the punch, contest those dollars situation. No question about it. It's good. It gives us variety.
And that's all about timing too.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Because I have a green poison ivy right now. I have ordered the skin poison ivy. So I will be selling the green one.
Yep.
And the green one's very sought after. Now, will she still be as sought after? I don't know.
Right.
In the long run, I do think if Prime 1 was smart, I think that they will do a quarter scale, but I think it'll be the green one.
Do you really?
I do, because the green one is accurate to the book.
Yeah, that's true.
Whereas the skin isn't. And it's also the skin one is part of their 100 or their 10-year anniversary.
Yep.
Program. So I don't think that they would do that one in quarter scale because of that.
Interesting. Okay.
See, I think you're probably right, but I bet that they'd be tempted to, because I think that the new one will have less breakages. The hair is much less susceptible to breakage than the original.
Well, you saw that one's going to be made of PVC.
Well, there you go.
So, that's really smart, because, I've had a lot of Prime 1 hair, especially the Huntress. I think of that one a lot.
Yeah.
That one had a lot of hair breakage, which is really crazy. Even I just reviewed, again, Joe Latour. I don't know if you guys saw the review of the Wonder Woman. Sorry. Wonder Woman. And, her hair was giant, taking her out of the box. It was all one big giant piece, and it made me nervous. It was really packed well, but I'm like, it's just another one of those that it's like a heavy hair. And so I love the idea that the Prime 1's doing a PVC hair. I think that's really, really smart.
Yeah.
Anything that's going to be that kind of fragile, I have no qualms at all with them doing that at all.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it seems like it's gotten better with the paint. Like back in the day, you could tell when something was painted plastic, and polystone between if it was on the same statue. Yeah. Now they're painting the plastic so well, it's almost sometimes hard to tell if it's even plastic or not. So it's definitely got better in the paint department.
Yeah, I agree.
Do you guys think there was a seam on that Chris Reeve Superman because the portrait is PVC?
That was one of my theories, that they had to work on the portrait separate and just went ahead with doing the body first, or maybe they had to get the fabric on a certain way without the head being there. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So are you thinking the neck is polystone and the head's PVC?
Yeah.
But why would they need to do that? Would it just be a magnet issue, do you think?
No idea why they did it. It was a big mistake. They shouldn't have had to do it, but why have a seam there if it was all polystone?
2 seams, because it was the one on the ear too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, most of the time, yeah.
People are already, when Power Girl came out, the latest PF, that material in that portrait is different. It's lighter. So I'm assuming it's probably PVC. So it wouldn't be the first time that they use PVC in a portrait.
Interesting. But I just don't know why they would need to do it.
Well, usually we say you get better details and capture the likeness better with those. But
they didn't.
I know that's the downfall.
That's the thing. It's
what Hot Toys does with their stuff.
And they still could have done PVC down to the collar line, which they didn't.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That would have been. I don't know. And maybe it was what you're saying, and they tried it and it didn't take very. I have seen that one in person, and it does look better in person than a lot of the photos. It's still not great in my opinion, but it is one of those that.
See, I was curious to see if another Reeves statue was going to come out in the near future, and maybe they were trying to rush to get this out the door first and went ahead and produced the bodies first while they waited on the license approval for the face. So they manufactured the body first, and then I don't know. There's a lot of conspiracies.
Superman says in Jeff's video of Sideshow Con, which I went back to watch, I'm sure Jeff thanks you, and Christopher Reeve Superman had the same neckline at the con.
Wow.
Yeah, I think that was a production piece at the con. I'm not sure that I knew that at the time.
I didn't either.
But I think that was a production piece.
I've seen it in person. The next scene, from normal viewing distance, I couldn't even tell there was a next scene.
And I will concur. I think the further away you get from that statue, you can't. Well, I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, I kind of do mean it. I mean, but it's like, like 2 feet away. That's the problem. Is like the internet and the Facebook groups are awful because they will, we'll see a photo of something really close up. Like, here's I don't know if you guys saw that video today or not.
Oh yeah, I watched it. Yep.
But if you see something like super zoomed in on it, that's really different than if you're just holding it like here to the naked eye, you're not going to see near the details as you are blown up. So that Christopher Reeve, again, seeing it in person, I really feel like that's one of those ones that if you just step back from it, it's going to be okay.
You know what? I think as much flack as that piece gets, I have this sneaky suspicion that it's actually doing really well for them. I mean, they must have had a lot of pre-orders to have that edition size, which is enormous.
It's insane.
And if you notice, the guy that went back and looked at my video, that video, which is like a 3-minute video spotlighting that piece, has more views than any of the spotlights I did at that convention.
Huh. That's interesting.
So I have a feeling that piece is probably selling pretty well. And also, Chris, you and I have that educator discount.
Yep.
That applies to most in-stock items. It still doesn't apply to that piece.
I wonder why.
So, because I think it's selling well. Because they with their newer pieces, they tend to hold back on allowing that discount to happen. But they've not allowed that for quite a while on that piece.
Well, and sometimes controversy creates cash.
Yeah,
it does. It's like that was a piece that a lot of people were talking about, got a lot of eyes on that product. Mm-hmm. And I, on a daily, see somebody say, hey, can we get a Christopher Reeve Superman statue from Prime 1 or from that was the thing. Whenever we saw the Michael Keaton Batman, that was the first thing out of everybody's mouth. Okay, when are we going to get the Chris Reeve Superman?
Yep.
So I think that there's still a very large demand for him, good or bad. It's like people are that desperate because people did not like the original Sideshow one where he was on the crack, the dam. And again, that was a PVC piece. That piece had controversy back then because it was the first piece that they had done that was PVC that they had not announced.
Yeah.
That it was PVC.
I want to see what Darkseid comes up with Chris Reeve.
Yeah.
And didn't Prime 1 and Blitzway announce one?
I don't think so.
No, maybe I'm misremembering that.
Not that I remember, but it's possible with all the trying to keep track of everything we do here. It's not always easy, but
I feel like there was another company, but I can't remember who it was. But definitely Darkseid has it on their slate.
That's cool. Well, that'll be awesome. So getting back to the 10-year question, I'll ask Julia this. Again, only being 2 years in, how long do you see yourself in this hobby? Do you feel that excitement and that knowing what's coming out and being part of the community and be like, okay, I'm just going to keep doing this for as long as I can. Kind of like, what's your goal with the hobby?
I feel like I live through all of you, to be honest, because I know there are so many pieces that I want that, you could justify anything, right? If you want it, you could say, you know what? No, I like that. I want that. But for me, I try really hard to stay within that focus. And then it's like those other reviews come out and I get to see the pieces like that Wonder Woman that you reviewed. That was beautiful. And there are things that, you just want and you just say, So for me, I really collect what speaks to me. So it would have to be something that really speaks to me for me to collect it. So I don't know. I mean, because I have such few pieces and I'm trying to keep it that way, I don't know if I would sell a poison ivy to get another poison ivy down the road. I mean, because there've been so few. Right now I can accommodate all of them.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's a great question. It would have to depend on what comes up next.
Yeah.
Yep.
You kind of touched into my question. Would you be willing to sell what you have now, or are you so attached to what you have that if something better came along, you would sell like a piece that you already have for a newer piece?
It's possible. I mean, it's possible, but I am very attached to what I have because I have such few pieces.
Yeah. Well, that's good.
So, I mean,
that means you're happy with what you have. So that's good.
Exactly.
I am happy with what I have, but they've made it really tricky with these new poison ivies because, you know, it went from like, okay, there are 3 poison ivy statues, right? Like when you think about the Tweeterhead one here, you know, like main ones, the 2 PFs and then there's the green hush one, which I mean, I always really liked, but I never saw myself getting just because it didn't speak to me. I mean, there was a time when I thought about getting it, but I said, you know, maybe if they do a flesh colored version, I would get her, you know, down the road. But yeah, now, I mean, that there are so many new ones coming out, it is starting to be that like, oh, do I sell one to get the other one? But hopefully it won't be like, I don't want her to become like I know I keep saying Harley Quinn, but it's the only other character I can think of. They make so many.
Yeah. That's true. They
I feel like when there are so many, you can't enjoy them, you know, because I mean, it's good to have choice and variety, but then it gets to be like, oh, well, how do I decide? What do I, you know, it's that fear of missing out too.
Yep.
Whereas that's when they're scarce, right? When there's like 1 or 2 poison ivies.
That's right. But you're hitting on all of the problems that we always have. You know, it's like, you know, the decisions that we have to make, and it is overwhelming because they're, you know, do I need 17 jokers? No. But you know, am I a glutton for punishment? Yes. You know, but it's very true. Like that's what we do. We always check those boxes and say, you know, is this what I need to do to keep the hobby going? Selling something or trying to keep a hold of something. It's pretty crazy. It is. How about you, Jeff? I think we haven't heard from you yet about how you see the future of collecting in the next 10 years. I think I'm curious as to where you see yourself collecting.
I'm sure I will be collecting some because I mean I've collected stuff for so long, but have sold stuff and got new stuff. And you know, the first statues I got into were when Gentle Giant made the Star Wars stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was maybe 20 years ago.
Yep, that's what first got me in.
Anniversary for Star Wars. I can't remember what year it was, but then they made quite a few, and I got into that and had those for a while, then sold those and got into this. So you know, it's kind of like it seems like it the amount of people into it kind of grows and then it, you know, dwindles back down.
Mm-hmm.
But then you always seem to have some people are going to be collecting no matter what. It may not be as many. You may see some people go. I think it wouldn't surprise me to see the days of 1/3 scale statues die off for a while. It may come back, but I think the shipping is going to kill it.
Yeah, we're already seeing it. We're already seeing that happen.
Yeah.
Which is sad. I do feel like, I don't know. I feel like with the statue collecting community, I feel like there's a bigger chunk of like 30 and 40-year-olds at this time.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, but I still feel like there is a bunch of newcomers coming in that are younger.
Yep.
And so that's always a good sign. Anytime you can get a new batch of people in, you know, I just don't know how long they're going to be willing to pay that kind of cost. I mean, we pay that cost because we've been in it for so long that we're hooked. I mean, we need that drug, you know? And so I think with newer collectors, I am curious, it will be interesting to see like how long can you dangle the carrot for them? if things continue to be priced the way they are.
We're assuming that diehard collectors are the majority of these companies' business. There's been a saying on Statue Forum for as long as I've been collecting that apparently a representative from Sideshow, back when they were more active on Statue Forum, once said that diehard statue collectors make up 3% of their business.
3?
How is that possible?
I don't know. But even if it's 10 or 20, that still means 80% of their business are people who maybe buy one statue and never come back.
But how do they get that out to people? Like Julie, how
San
did
Diego?
you mentioned that you found Sideshow? Like, how did you find them? Do you remember how you found them?
San Diego. It was Comic-Con San Diego.
No, I'm to Julie. I'm talking to Julie.
Oh.
Sorry. I want to know yours too. Sorry.
Apparently not. Fine, I'll just leave.
And take your big gulp with you.
Yeah, right.
I am. Damn it.
It's a good question. I honestly really think, I was just searching. There was a little, so that was it. There was a little poison ivy statue, and it's a PVC. It's actually by Diamond Select, and she's like coming out of a flower.
Mm-hmm.
And it was one of those really, really affordable ones. And that was like the first one that I found, right? That I was like, oh, wow, they make a poison ivy. And I remember just looking, that was it. I was on YouTube and I wanted to see reviews before I, got it, even though it was, pretty affordable, right? And I remember, I think you came up, Chris.
Oh.
You came up with like your OG poison ivy review. And then that was like, that's the domino effect, right? And I said, oh, there's a bigger poison ivy there, and then I saw the little CoverGirl ones. So I really started to, it all came together. But I think it was YouTube. And then, like research on eBay and things, because of course at that point, those statues weren't available. So I had to, deal with eBay. But I was, I was lucky. I got some really good deals. But yeah, I feel like it was YouTube.
That's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So Jeff, where did you first discover Sideshow?
San Diego.
Oh, San Diego. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Had you ever seen anything like that before you went to your first con like that? Like, had you seen?
Well, it wasn't my first con, but
Well, I mean, like,
I had seen the stuff that DC puts out at my local comic shop.
Yeah.
And I'd picked up a few of those just to display with comics. I never thought about being a statue collector.
Yeah.
And I would wander through Sideshow's booth at the convention every year, but for some weird reason, it never occurred to me to buy one until one year when I saw the first Batgirl, and I thought, wow, that's really cool. I was actually slightly embarrassed to buy it. It just seemed like, why am I buying a 2-foot-tall statue of Batgirl for $400? But
back then that was stupid money.
Yeah.
I mean, that was like, I'm not going to pay $400 for something like that. Like,
and
yeah.
It looked so cool in here. It just became a tidal wave. It was ridiculous.
Yep. Open the floodgates.
Yeah.
Well, anything else you guys want to say about this topic? I mean, again, I feel like we're all kind of in agreement that I feel like things kind of have to change a little bit. Maybe some companies have to tweak some things. Some might come and go, but I'm still optimistic that we'll still get great product and we'll get, things that we're going to be excited about for hopefully a long time to come. But anything else you guys want to add?
Collectors are being more careful with their money. You guys probably saw the post I did earlier today in my group that Suicide Squad Harley, they're only making 500.
That's
Really? Of the Margot Robbie?
Yep.
500. That's it.
Oh, that says a lot.
With the ice cream base.
And that was a piece that, again, in San Diego, I saw a lot of like just casual people walk in and they really liked that one.
Yeah.
And it's Margot Robbie and she's very popular. So I'm surprised about 500.
I think it's the base.
Could
I
be.
like the pose. Everybody wanted her in that costume, but the base doesn't work for me. And I don't think it worked for a lot of others.
Interesting. Well, I mean, that does say a lot.
Yeah.
Hey guys, thank you so very much for watching today. And if you're new here, please hit the subscribe button right here on the screen and check out these 2 awesome videos. I think you're going to love them. And also please join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. I would love to have you join in all the fun. Thank you guys so very much for watching. See you in the Batcave.